Burnley have been a lot of fun to follow throughout their time in the Premier League, being the plucky underdog under Sean Dyche, yo-yoing up and down, solidifying themselves in the league, before then finding themselves in the post-Sean Dyche era where they want to rip up the playbook and start again and be a bit more of a modern footballing side. The Vincent Kompany experiment, you don't need me to tell you anything about that, we all know how that panned out. It's been picked up by Scott Parker, and I think the job he's done in the Championship has really set them on a really good path to come back into the Premier League and try and retain that Premier League status once again. And when I see the transfer business that Scott Parker is doing for Burnley already, they have just thrown themselves straight in the deep end. They're bringing in young, high quality, physically gifted footballers from around European football. And with Trafford now out firmly on the exit door on his way to Newcastle, there's going to be a big waft of money probably coming Burnley's way. And this is only the beginning of the transfer window for them. They've went out and completed the transfers of Loum Tchaouna, Marcus Edwards, and Quilindschy Hartman. And these are three players that I've seen a fair bit of. I've got a high opinion of them all, certainly. And in the video today, we're going to have a look at the Burnley squad, how it all sits at the moment, where these players fit in, what they offer Burnley, and where are the gaps that they still need to fill between now and the end of the transfer window if they are going to go that one step better and not be the foot of the table, but actually retain Premier League status in the 25-26 season. Now, this is my first time covering Burnley on the channel, so if there's any intel, any insight that any Burnley fans out there want to share with me in terms of youth players that might be breaking through, maybe some other transfers that aren't really caught on all the kind of main sources across the internet that I'm using to, get the ball rolling with any sort of coverage and any sort of analysis that we're going to do for Burnley here on the channel today. As always, the fans of the clubs are the best people to get insight, to get intel from. So feel free to educate me, feel free to point out anything I've got wrong or anything you would add into this, and we'll try and make sure we implement that in the next video. Because when I was setting up for this, like looking at the Burnley squad, I genuinely couldn't believe the amount of bodies that they've got. I do think some of them are not actually really in the picture. Maybe like this guy Sambo, Agayi, Banel, or Benel, perhaps. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these guys are quite important. Maybe they're up-and-coming young players or whatever. But for the most part, I think that they were quite on the fringe. This Sherlinov guy has been out on loan last year at Poland. I don't really see him making much of an impact in the squad. And there's one or two other ones like that, like Adewume, who was on loan at Dundee or Ross County last year, something like that. And with Trafford leaving and no Muric in the building, these are the goalkeepers that are currently on the books. And really between the three of them, I've got no idea who is going to be the number one this year, with Weiss coming in from Karlsruhe, Etienne Green, previously been an England youth international in Hladeke, who has played, in the absence of Trafford last year and has had some appearances for Burnley over the period. But generally, this is a really big squad. And the thing with Scott Parker ball that I've noticed already, just in terms of the bird's view kind of headline statistics, analytics or whatever, is it's much more defensively compact, much more defensively sound than what we've seen under Vincent Kompany. And when I seen the other day that they had signed Quilindschy Hartman in at left back, I thought this is a huge move. This could be, it's a different position obviously, but this could very easily be for me like a Dean Howson Bournemouth situation. Hartman has been one of the most impressive young up-and-coming left-backs across European football for me. He's got a massive engine. He really takes no prisoners. And in 50-50, shoulder to shoulder, like he's a match for most players. He's got a lot of Champions League experience at Feyenoord, not just playing in the Eredivisie, is what you normally expect from these teams. But Feyenoord under Arne Slot have been winning the Dutch League, have been winning cups. He's a very successful, well-decorated player and has been tested at the highest level already. He did have a really bad injury last year, but he recovered from it and he managed to get into the Feyenoord team before the end of the season. And this is a move that came out of nowhere. And I think on top of, like they've added in Tuanzebe as well from relegated Ipswich, former Man United player, of course. But alongside the likes of Lucas Pires, who was quite good last year, Jordan Bayer, who I know we're all big fans of, but is often injured. The overall profile, the makeup now of the defence is a long departure from Ben Mee and Tarkowski and, these sorts of guys. It's much more about being on the ball, building out from the back. And with somebody like Hartman, you've got extra kind of ammunition in attack, extra support in the final third for somebody like Jadon Anthony or whoever else could be playing on the left. It depends on rotations and substitutions, that sort of thing. And like genuinely, like this was the first thing that really made me think, wow, what are Burnley up to and how's the rest of their squad going? But with the goalkeeper question mark to one side, I actually quite like this defence to do pretty well in the Premier League. And they're not going to be one of the best defences in the league and keep a really high clean sheet rate or anything like that, but I don't think they're going to be coming into the league and getting mugged off, because also when you do have a fullback like Quilindschy Hartman that can go both ways very effectively, the consequence of that is you're normally bringing a winger with you, and that's a kind of a risk and reward situation of modern football that is very important when you're coming into the Premier League, that you don't just have playmakers and really good like wide attacking front men here, or like Medjbril or whatever, but you also have that kind of support, that underbelly, because it just has a knock-on effect to the rest of the opposition in terms of how they deal with you and how they try and defend the situation. So this is a huge coup for Burnley. I think this is a kid that might only be at Burnley for a year, maybe two, before they make a lot more money on him than what they've paid. A Dutch international, I can't speak highly enough of this kid. Burnley fans get excited. I think he's going to do very, very well. I must confess, but when I did look at the Burnley squad and seen like how busy it was, I was very surprised to see that Brownhill's contract has not yet been extended. He's currently sitting as a free agent. And, some of the Burnley people that I've found on Twitter and X and whatever seem to think that he's still in discussions with the club and they are still going to ratify a move. I think if you take Brownhill out of the equation here, this team looks decisively weaker very, very quickly. And I think Brownhill, an extension for him should be an absolute priority for Burnley. He has had some loose links to Celtic, so I wouldn't mind if he went to Celtic necessarily at this stage in his career. But this is a guy that's been there, seen it, done it in terms of that Premier League kind of the grind and what's required alongside Josh Cullen. And I think like that defence, if it's got a good engine room in front of it, of a Brownhill and a Cullen, maybe another transfer could come in to lift the level of it perhaps, then I think this is what gives Burnley a very good chance of having a good footing in the league. And I think the Brownhill transfer, or in lieu of that, a serious Brownhill replacement, has to be really top of the agenda. Guys like Benson, Trezor, Zeki, Amdouni as well. There's been a few of these guys that have been in the squads for a while and, through injury and other different kind of problems, haven't really fulfilled their potential. I would hope as many of these guys are available for next season as possible, because you do need a bit of X factor in your squad. You do need somebody that can just unlock the door, that can just score a worldie. If you think about peak Ashley Barnes, you need somebody that can do that kind of on the regular. He's obviously still in the building. I'm sure he'll do great. Zion Fleming is signed on again for this season as well, and Zion is a player again I'm a big fan of. But there's a very clear structure here. There's a very clear depth of the squad and shape that they're looking to build into. And the reason I wanted to come and record the video today was the signing of Loum Tchaouna. Now this is a player that I watched quite a lot when he was at Salernitana. He was on loan from maybe a team in France or something like that before Lazio spent big on him. Didn't see as much of him at Lazio because he just didn't play as often, to be honest with you. But this guy, similar to what I'm saying with Hartman, is a real coup. I don't expect him to really walk into the team as such, because going from Serie A to the Premier League is a big step up, especially when you're moving to a team like Burnley, previously from being a team like Lazio. Lazio typically top 5, top 6. Burnley typically bottom half, just to keep it kind. It's a different task at hand, essentially. But from what I've seen of him at Salernitana, who got relegated the year he was there, I've seen a lot of promise in him. I've seen a lot of power, a lot of pace. This is a guy that has tricks. This is a guy that has techers, and this is a guy that likes to excite as well. He's listed as a right winger. When you see that Koleosho and Marcus Edwards are already in the building as well, I don't think Tchaouna is going to be used as a right winger. I think one of two things is going to happen here. He's either going to be probably used alongside Jadon Anthony as real left wing cover. At Salernitana, he played quite a lot on the left. He has a lot of versatility actually in attack as well, where he can play just off the front. He can play as the guy up front, but I don't think that's really his bag. But if he can play in like a kind of, sometimes you see not the front three not being like wingers, but then being like inside forwards. If this sort of thing is on the go, then again, I think this is something that Tchaouna could do very well in. And this is a system that Marcus Edwards also did very well in. So I'm not too sure if Burnley are going to have like a proper change of shape off the back of this. But the addition of Marcus Edwards, a guy again that's very well decorated from his time in Portugal and England youth international, and through injury, and I don't know if there's maybe agent chat or any touch of the Ravel Morrisons about this guy or whatever, but for some reason he's never really highly sought after, despite doing pretty well on the continent, especially when you consider the hype and the furore around Gyökeres. Marcus Edwards, very similar background, and has been not as prolific as Gyökeres, of course, but he's been as effective under Amarim's peak Sporting Lisbon team. So I think if we take the Hoon guy and Lyle Foster out the equation for a second, we know Barnes is going to be super sub club legend. Zeki Amdouni coming back from Benfica could be a good option as well, but Zion Fleming is probably going to be the main man. alongside Jadon Anthony, Tchaouna, Koleosho and Marcus Edwards. Like, that has the potential to be like a firm mid-table, attack outlet here. I'm thinking about Bournemouth last year. We made the Dean Howson comparison with Hartman, but when I look at, the success that Bournemouth had last year with Semenyo, Otara, Kluivert, Tavernier, these types of players out in the wide area, and then having Aniva Nielsen, Enes Unal when he was fit through the middle. I think there's a lot of that blueprint coming into Burnley here, where throughout the entire 90 minutes, they'll play Tchaouna and Anthony, they'll play Marcus Edwards and Koleosho, they'll play Zian Fleming and maybe Zeki, maybe Barnes, maybe somebody that's yet to be signed, maybe one of those guys I just deleted, who knows, maybe the comment section will tell me. But I don't think I've looked at a Burnley team before coming into the Premier League and genuinely thinking that they've got sincere quality and depth on all these types of positions. Yes, there's been years gone by where like Dwight McNeil's been in the building and other guys like that have been probably individually maybe more reliable, more effective than some of these guys have been. I know Jadon Anthony's a big flavour of the month at the moment. I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone, of course, but what I'm trying to highlight is, like, to 6 players or 7 players potentially, the depth in attack for Burnley is shaping up really nicely. Like I mentioned in the tip-off to the video, young, up-and-coming guys with something to prove that do have elite quality, do have pedigree, have been successful in other places. Tchaouna maybe the least successful of the other transfers I'm impressed with by comparison in terms of how many medals he's won and whatever, but a guy that I think is actually going to excel in the Premier League. He's big, he's powerful, he's got that versatility, and he's a guy that I could easily see having like a good run of like 3 or 4 matches and really become, like, we just used flavour of the month there for Jadon Anthony, but he's a guy that has that potential in him. And like I say, with the support cast around him, I just think Burnley are going to have a really good year. Like I mentioned already, I think the centre mid, the engine room here, is the biggest question mark, is the biggest problem for Burnley now, because it's so thin. This Masengo guy was on loan at Auxerre. Not sure how well he can be thought of in the depth chart. Ekdal went out on loan last year to Holland, I think, and this Laurent guy has been injured. So even in the incumbent squad, especially when you take Brownhill out, it's just very, very thin here. I like the way the defence has been built. I'm not too sure on the goalkeepers, and I really like what's happening in attack here. Hannibal, Medjbury, if Tresor's fit, he's good kind of depth and cover for him. Maybe if he's fit and available, he could do a bit of the Brownhills, but I don't think physically he's got that kind of profile, that kind of silhouette to pull that off necessarily. So it will be interesting to see what goes on here in the middle of the pitch. But if Burnley get this right with that big war chest of money they've maybe got from selling James Trafford, then this could be like a super, a very exciting year for Burnley. I'm going to be really interested to follow on from this video and pay attention to the rest of their transfer business, and as well ultimately see how they progress through the Premier League under Scott Parker, who's a manager that does have, a rising reputation in the game, as it were. Because like this talent ID that they've picked up, like Tuanzebe, elite academy prospect, been there, done it a little bit with Ipswich. He's got the battle scars, he's got a bit of experience under his belt. Maybe he could do a bit better. International Connor Roberts, Hartman we already spoke about, of course. Zian has been a revelation. Koleosho, an international. Jadon Anthony really doing well. This is an exciting Burnley team. It does. The more I'm thinking, there's a lot of Bournemouth deja vu here for me. And Bournemouth quietly went about their business, got themselves into mid-table, kind of pushed on again this season. And that's the sort of trajectory I think Burnley are after. And I think the transfer business they've done so far certainly sets them down that path. Like I said already, I'm going to be really interested and excited to follow on and see how they get on in the transfer business as well. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. On screen now is some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Please hit the subscribe button if you did enjoy the video for more content like this. Don't forget to jump into the comment section, tell me anything I should add in or I've got wrong, whatever it might be. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, of course. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.